right, y'all, time for me to inflict you with some more ceiling fan revelations, or ruminations, rather. I don't know if there will be much revelatory here. Hopefully there will be, but no promises. Um, Thinking back on, I forgot his name. Thinking back on Richard Spencer. Um, a lot of y'all probably know more about what he's up to these days than I do. So if I'm wrong about this, please tell me, but it's been my impression that he has had pretty much garbage takes on everything imaginable for the last maybe 6 years or so. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think I'm wrong. It seems like his whole strategy, because I think he's like a strategizing guy. I think he's got a plan. That's been my impression of him, is that he's always had a plan. He's never lacked confidence in himself, and he's always got a plan. He's got some scheme in mind, uh, and some way in which he's pretty sure he's going to be able to get her done. I mean, I remember this about him from way back, from back when we were associates with one another. Uh, and I would suspect that it's still true now. So it seems like what his plan has been lately, uh, especially in the post 2016 era, when he had after he had his falling out with Trump, it seems like his plan has been to just be as much of a shit lib as possible, to take every single uh, uh, possible shit libby take on every political social issue that exists, and loudly proclaim it to the heavens to out shit lib the shit libs. But at the same time, to be like, yeah, I'm a liberal, but I'm also uh, you know race conscious. I'm also pro-white, but I'm just as much of a liberal, if not more. And I despise middle America. I despise middle American conservatives. Um, you know, just as much as the bi-coastal liberal types do. And so it seems like the plan is to win over the liberals and get them to be race conscious, get them to be pro-white. And it seems like that plan has spectacularly failed. Um, and I'm not saying, like, I think it's partly Richard's genuine proclivities. I think he's always, I don't know why, but even back when I knew him, he always had this hatred of middle America and, red state conservatism. It was like, back then, before his falling out with Trump, pre 2017, his take was, liberals are bad, but conservatives are worse. Neocons are the very worst. Like they were the ones he hated the very most, uh, out of everyone. Uh, but but uh, but then after 2017, he he became a neocon, essentially, or a neolib, maybe. I mean, he got fully on board with the Ukraine thing. And prior to 2017, the Richard of the early to mid teens was pro-Russia, essentially, as from what I can remember. Um, I remember I wrote some piece about how we don't have to take sides on Russia versus Eastern Europe. You know, people who were from Eastern Europe who were traditionalists, but were against Russia because of the history of Russian uh, imperialism, and how Dugan, however you say his name, how he was saying, no, you can't. You're if you opt to be with the Eastern European traditionalists, then you're really just opting for the West and all its decadence and all its degeneracy, and you have to choose Russia or else. It's just one or the other, man. You got to choose. And I was like, no, that's not true. And I remember Richard was critical of that when somebody called my article to his attention. He was critical of it. He was down on it. He seemed like he was essentially in agreement with Dugan, but then he switched up. He switched teams post 2017, and one of his many garbage takes has been to be just like all on board with the Ukraine op. Uh, you know, we need to get behind Ukraine, and like like the most like everything that he was critical of about the those who were pushing for the invasion of Iraq in the early aughts. That's what he became in 2022. You know, but I mean, for my money, I guess let me finish my thought about Richard uh, before going off on that that uh, that important tangent. The thing is, his plan hasn't worked. It's failed spectacularly. I mean, liberals hate Richard Spencer now just as much. My impression is anyway. They hate him just as much now as they hated him when he first, became a part of their consciousness as the Nazi guy that you punch, that they got punched, and it was good that he got punched, and ha ha ha. Look at how the Nazi got punched, and we should all punch a Nazi. Ha ha ha. Um, you know, his plan seems to me like his plan has been to try to win them over, and it's failed because it's like if they hear him, my impression is anyway. The few times I've like jumped aboard, like I've just gritted my teeth and gone on Twitter and looked up Richard Spencer, and I know it's interesting that he never got banned on Twitter, right? That's interesting, but that's a different story. Uh, but yeah, I mean, in the pre Elon Musk era, he never got banned on Twitter, which is quite interesting. So I just remember the times when I went and saw what he had to say about this, that, or the other thing, and it seemed like how he was effectually trying to ingratiate himself with liberals by bashing the conservative take on something. So I remember what I'm remembering now what it was. I saw like, and this is like it seems like incredibly trivial thing, compared to other real issues. But I remember when the fifth Indiana Jones movie came out earlier this year, the awful Indiana Jones movie where he gets cucked by the patriarchy fighting, uh, you know, strong, smart woman who don't need no man. Uh, he gets this annoying companion who follows him along and undermines his masculinity and everything. He was, and everybody was bashing the movie and how it was following in the woke trend and everything. And he was like, no, it was a good movie, and conservatives are stupid for attacking it. And And like the replies were all, "Fuck you, Richard Spencer. Yeah, that's great. Fuck you, Richard Spencer. We don't care. We still want to punch you. You're still a Nazi, so fuck you." And that's just like that's just my impression that his effort to try to, whether it's I mean, partly really how he feels. Uh, Again, whether it's whether there's some part of it that's really uh, organically him, in that he's always, you know, hated middle American conservatives for whatever reason, just because he's a, I don't know, he's a snob and just thinks that he's better than them and they're just a bunch of yahoos. Uh, you know, uh, you know, but anyway, this going all in on liberalism has failed. It hasn't made Richard Spencer's brand of whatever it is, his brand of white nationalism, or I don't even know how you'd label it. Um, it hasn't made it more palatable to a wider audience. So I'm just wondering. It's like, is the guy just so deluded? Why is he continuing down that road? Does he really think he's going to gain ground, or is it just an issue of, as with Colin Liddell, is it just an issue of spite? I mean, I think Colin's turn towards being this neocon, neolib, anti-Russian shill, essentially. I think, while I've speculated before, who's paying him, or how did he get in bed with these kinds of people all of a sudden? Because this wasn't the Colin Liddell. This wasn't Colin Liddell pre-2022. Before Russia invaded Ukraine. This was not Colin Liddell, but it became him with a vengeance in 2022. And my impression is with him, is that it's animated primarily by spite. That's not because he's been paid off, or he's been bought off, or anything like that. But with Richard, I don't know. I don't get the impression that he's, in spite of everything, I don't get the impression he's a spiteful man. Um, there's part of Richard I still actually like. Believe it or not, you don't have to believe it, but there's a part of him I've never stopped liking, because there's a part of him that's honestly, uh, you know, unbelievably quite amiable. Quite likable. Um, I don't know how to explain it, but it just is. It is what it is. Now, that said, the fact that Richard went all in, apparently, because I'm relying more on secondhand, uh, because I haven't followed him. Um, I don't regularly get up and see what's he saying now. It's just what I hear, what gets filtered down to me, or what eventually drifts through my transom, as it were, concerning him. I have absolutely no sympathy with his going along with this pandemic op. His pushing, saying, "Yeah, you got to put that mask over your nose, man," and you should really, everything should be locked down, and you should be okay with that. And if you're not okay with that, uh, then you're just being irresponsible. And I mean, it's of a piece with his anti middle American conservatism, because it became a thing. It became a populist middle American right wing issue to be opposed to all of these draconian restrictions and creeping totalitarianism of that era. that got to be something that was embraced by red state kind of people. And so, I mean, it makes sense that just in a reactive sort of way, Richard would go against them and say, "Nuh-uh, you guys are wrong. The liberals are right, just like they are about everything except race." But don't worry, I'm gonna I'm gonna make him see the light on race too. So it makes sense that he would take that kind of stance. I just find for myself, and this is the tangent I'm going to end uh, these meditations with, uh, these ceiling fan meditations. Uh, I have found that the the scamdemic was a very clarifying uh, moment for me, in that I have found that it's sort of the lens through which I judge whether somebody is worthwhile or not. Is their how they responded to the scamdemic. Now, I want to make it clear I'm not down on regular people who just put put the pieces of cloth over their faces, uh, or who got the injection. I have no hostility towards people who just did whatever because they thought that was what they should do, but who weren't like on Twitter, you know, sanctimoniously uh, uh, sanctimoniously saying that you were trying to kill grandma if you were not with them. I want to make that clear. It's the people who were loud in their advocacy for uh, what the state and what the corporate elite were doing to the rest of us, the tyranny that they exercised unrestrainedly to a great extent during that era. You know, if you were with if that's where you stood, you could be totally based on everything, but if you went along with that shit, I'm not with you. And by the same token, you could be just a flaming liberal, you know, uh, we need to trans everybody, don't assume my gender, uh, you know, LGBT, uh, and every other letter besides to the max, feminist, what have you. I'm being a little hyperbolic here, but you could be totally liberal, but if you actually courageously said, no, this is wrong, I'm not going along with this, this is bullshit, this is a scam, I'm not going to be bullied by these so-called experts, then then you're my kind of person. I can still, I can break bread with you. You're one of my kind. Like that issue alone. I think people uh, who resisted, uh, there's something so important about resisting that particular uh, that particular egregious psyop. Much more egregious than Ukraine, or really anything else, any other current thing that I can think of. Much more. I have realized that, and I don't know what to conclude from that. but that it's like that tells me something very important about you. If you're not if you're going to actively if you're going to choose to actively resist when everybody is screaming at you that you're a bad person, if you don't just approve of the everything being shut down and everybody having to stay 6 feet apart and all that gay shit, you know, and uh, and then everybody needs to get this whatever goo, whatever whatever uh, witchy brew they've cooked up in their labs. Everybody has to get this injected into your bloodstream, or else you're a bad person. Um, and you don't belong with you. You should be just expelled from civilization. Like Noam Chomsky and Gene Simmons and other vaxholes, as they've been called, have been recorded as saying. If you were against that, then that's in a way that's I'm not going to say it's all that matters, but it matters so much in telling me what caliber of person you are. It shows me that you're the kind of person who's going to fight uh, tyranny instead of uh, uh, you know strategically, opportunistically siding with tyranny, uh, in order to show what a good little boy or good little girl you are. That to me speaks volumes. And there hasn't been such a clarifying issue in my lifetime as that, so much as that. I mean, abortion is something being against abortion, being pro-life, that's something I feel very strongly about. But I don't know, like, if you're if you're if you don't see things the same way that I do, I think that I don't know. I find it easier to forgive as long as you're not like actually working uh, in an abortion clinic or something, or actively helping this terrible thing take place. But it seems like the people who were I don't know. I'm or maybe it's just maybe for me it's just become it's assumed a greater importance than it really has. But I don't think so. I really don't think so. So yeah, I mean, and I know I started out by talking about Richard Spencer, but now I've moved on to more important things. Um, you know, if it had broken, if like somehow in 2020 it had become a liberal cause celeb to be against the tyranny, against the lockdowns, against the forced masking, against the 6 feet apart mandates, if that had become a liberal thing instead of a conservative thing, I would have been. People think that, or some people just assume that if you were against all of that stuff, um, that you were just going along with, you're just a sheep who was going along with the all of the Jesus freaks in Middle America, you know. But I mean, that's what some people would just assume. But I can honestly say, if my fellow Jesus freaks in Middle America, if they had all been uh, like, okay, yeah, we got to do what we're told, and it had been liberals who had said, hell no, we're not doing this shit, then that wouldn't have mattered one single bit. I would still have responded the way that I did. It wasn't at all about just picking a side, being partisan, being choosing, uh, like asking myself, what is my side uh, of the culture war think about this issue, and then becoming that. This was a visceral, from the gut uh, kind of thing for me. To me, it's when, no pun intended, when the mask slipped and we saw the people who rule us for who they really are and what they're really capable of.